How did it come to this? I only wanted one night of freedom, but instead, I came home to divorce papers served at my own front door. Can a single ultimatum really destroy everything? Or was he always planning to turn my own game against me? The kitchen clock ticked past 9:30 as I stood at the granite counter, my hands gripping the edge so tightly my knuckles had gone white. Grant sat at our dining table, methodically sorting through bills with that infuriating calm of his, acting like I hadn't been trying to have this conversation for the past hour. "I'm not asking for permission, Grant," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "I'm telling you, I need this night out with Mom. It's been months since we've had proper time together, and Sadie will be fine for one night." He looked up from the electric bill, his brown eyes meeting mine, with that same measured expression he'd perfected over our 8 years of marriage. "Mireille, you know I don't have a problem with you seeing your mother, but sleeping over, on a Thursday night, when Sadie has school in the morning." I felt that familiar surge of frustration building in my chest. This was exactly what I was talking about, the constant questioning, the need to control every aspect of my life. She's 6 years old, not 16. She can miss one morning routine. God, Grant, sometimes I feel like I'm married to my father instead of my husband. "That's not fair." His voice remained level, but I caught the slight tightening around his eyes. "I'm thinking about our daughter's stability, and honestly, this feels sudden. You mentioned it for the first time 20 minutes ago." "Sudden?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I've been telling you for weeks that I need more time with my family. You just don't listen. You never listen." Grant set down the bill and leaned back in his chair. "I listen, Mireille, but there's a difference between spending an evening with your mother and abandoning your family overnight with no real explanation." Abandoning? The word hit me like a slap. "Are you serious right now? One night away from this house, from constantly being questioned and monitored, and you call it abandoning my family?" I pulled out my phone and started typing furiously to my mother. "Mom, Grant is being impossible about tonight. Can you believe he thinks wanting to spend time with you is abandoning my family?" Her response came within seconds. "Honey, you deserve to have relationships outside your marriage. A controlling husband is a red flag. Come over whenever you need to." I showed Grant the message, vindicated. "See, even Mom thinks you're being controlling." Grant glanced at the phone, then back at me. His expression hadn't changed, but something flickered behind his eyes. "Mireille, I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to understand why this particular night is so important that you're willing to have a fight about it." "Because I shouldn't have to justify wanting time with my mother," I snapped. "Because I'm 32 years old and I'm tired of feeling like I need permission to breathe in my own life." From upstairs came the sound of Sadie's bedroom door opening, followed by her small voice calling down. "Mommy? Daddy? Why are you yelling?" Grant immediately softened his voice. "We're just talking, sweetheart. Go back to bed. Daddy will be up to check on you in a minute." I felt a stab of guilt, but pushed it away. This wasn't about Sadie. This was about Grant's need to control everything, including how loud I was allowed to speak in my own home. "Fine," I said, grabbing my purse from the counter. "I can see this conversation isn't going anywhere. I'm going to Mom's. I'll be back tomorrow after work." "Mireille, wait." But I was already heading for the door. As I reached for the handle, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "I'll make up the couch for you, honey. You don't deserve this treatment." I typed back quickly. "Thank you. At least someone understands what I'm going through." Behind me, I heard Grant's phone ring. I paused, listening as he answered, with a tired, "Hi, Mum." Even from the hallway, I could hear Marion's voice, sharp with concern. "Grant, is everything all right over there? I thought I heard raised voices when I called earlier." "We're fine, Mum," Grant said, but his voice carried a weariness that made something twist in my stomach. "Just working through some things." "Are you sure? Because if you need me to come over—" "No, it's okay. Mireille is going to spend the night at Leela's. We'll talk tomorrow." I felt a surge of anger at how he made it sound, like I was running away instead of standing up for myself. I yanked open the front door, letting it slam behind me harder than necessary. As I sat in my car, hands shaking as I started the engine, I caught a glimpse of Grant through the kitchen window. He was still on the phone with his mother, one hand pressed against his forehead in that gesture he made when he was stressed. For just a moment, I felt a flicker of doubt. But then my phone buzzed again with another supportive message from Mom, and I pushed the feeling away. I deserved this night. I deserved to feel supported and understood, instead of constantly questioned and doubted. I pulled out of the driveway and headed toward downtown, toward the Lantern pub where Joel worked Thursday nights. Mom would understand if I was a little late. She always did. The Lantern was busier than usual for a Thursday night, filled with the usual mix of office workers, unwinding, and college students starting their weekends early. I spotted Joel immediately behind the bar, his dark hair catching the warm light as he mixed drinks with that easy confidence that had first caught my attention 3 months ago. "Well, look who decided to grace us with her presence," he said with that crooked smile as I approached the bar. "Thought you said Thursdays were family nights." "Change of plans," I said, sliding onto a bar stool. "Turns out my husband thinks I need permission to see my own mother." Joel raised an eyebrow as he poured my usual vodka tonic with extra lime. "Rough night at home?" "You could say that." I took a long sip, feeling the tension in my shoulders start to ease. "God, Joel, sometimes I wonder what my life would be like if I'd made different choices." "Hey now," he said, leaning closer across the bar. "Don't go down that road. You're here now, aren't you?" I felt that familiar flutter in my chest, the one that reminded me I was still attractive, still desirable. Grant hadn't looked at me the way Joel did in years. When was the last time my husband had made me feel like I was worth pursuing instead of just managing? My phone buzzed with a text from Grant. "Can we talk when you get home tomorrow? I think we got our wires crossed tonight." I showed the message to Joel, who shook his head. Classic manipulation tactic, making you think you misunderstood instead of acknowledging what he did wrong. "Exactly," I said, grateful that someone finally understood. "He does this all the time, makes me feel crazy for having normal reactions to his controlling behavior." I typed back to Grant. "I'm at Mum's now. We can talk tomorrow if you're ready to actually listen for once." Joel glanced around the bar, then back at me. "You know, I get off in an hour. If you want to continue this conversation somewhere quieter—" My heart raced. I knew what he was suggesting, and I knew I should say no. But sitting there, feeling understood and desired for the first time in months, the word no seemed impossible. "I should probably get to my mother's," I said weakly. "Should," Joel repeated, wiping down a glass. "That's not the same as want, is it?" An hour later, I found myself in Joel's small apartment above the bakery on Main Street. It was cramped but cozy, nothing like the suburban perfection Grant insisted on maintaining. Here, I could breathe. Here, I felt like myself again. "You know you deserve better than this, right?" Joel said as we sat on his couch, my head resting on his shoulder. "You deserve someone who supports your independence instead of questioning every move you make." "I know," I whispered. It's complicated. There's Sadie to think about." "Kids are resilient," he said, his fingers tracing patterns on my arm. "They'd rather have a happy mom than a mom who's slowly dying inside a marriage that doesn't fulfill her." It was past midnight when I remembered to text my mother. "Running late, honey. Don't wait up. See you in the morning." She responded immediately. "Of course, sweetheart. Take all the time you need. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself." I took a quick selfie in Joel's bathroom, making sure to crop out anything that would give away where I really was, and sent it to Mom with the caption, "Finally relaxing. Thank you for always having my back." When I woke up in Joel's bed the next morning, reality hit me like a cold shower. I'd actually done it. I'd crossed a line I'd been dancing around for months. But as I looked at Joel sleeping peacefully beside me, I didn't feel the crushing guilt I'd expected. Instead, I felt alive. For the first time in years, I felt like a woman instead of just a wife and mother. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Grant and a text. "Hope you and your mum had a good night. Sadie's asking for you. We need to talk tonight." I typed back, "Had a wonderful time. Be home after work. Tell Sadie I love her." As I got dressed, Joel stirred. "No regrets?" he asked softly. I thought about Grant's text, about Sadie asking for me, about the life I'd be returning to in a few hours. Then I looked at Joel, at the man who made me feel valued and desired and understood. "No regrets," I said firmly. But as I drove home that morning, Grant's words from the night before echoed in my head. I'm trying to understand why this particular night is so important. If only he knew just how important it had been. I slipped into the house just after 7 a.m., hoping to shower and change before Sadie woke up. But as I closed the front door as quietly as possible, I heard the familiar sounds of morning routine already in progress. The coffee maker gurgling, cartoons playing softly in the living room. "Mommy!" Sadie's voice rang out as she spotted me from the couch. She bounded over in her pajamas, wrapping her arms around my legs. "I missed you. Daddy said you were having a sleepover with Grandma Lila." "That's right, baby," I said, smoothing her hair and trying to ignore the guilt that twisted in my stomach. "Did you have a good night with Daddy?" "We had pancakes for dinner," she said conspiratorially, "and he let me stay up until 8:30 to watch the movie." Grant appeared in the kitchen doorway, coffee mug in hand. He looked tired, older somehow than he had just 12 hours ago. "Morning," he said quietly. "How was your night?" "Fine," I replied, perhaps too quickly. "Mum and I had a lot to catch up on. You know how it is." He nodded, but something in his expression made me uncomfortable. There was a watchfulness there that I wasn't used to, like he was studying me for clues to a puzzle he was trying to solve. "Daddy made extra coffee," Sadie announced. "He said you might need some when you got home." "That was thoughtful," I said, moving past Grant into the kitchen. As I reached for a mug, our hands brushed briefly, and I felt him stiffen at the contact. "So, what did you and Grandma Lila end up doing?" he asked casually, but I caught the undertone of something else in his voice. "Just talked mostly. Watched some old movies. You know, normal mother-daughter stuff." I busied myself with the coffee, avoiding his eyes. She made her famous chocolate chip cookies. "That sounds nice," Grant said. "I'm glad you got the time together you needed." But there was something in his tone that made me look up sharply. "You say that like you don't believe me." "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to. I can hear it in your voice, Grant. This is exactly what I was talking about last night. The constant suspicion, the way you question everything I do." Sadie looked between us, her smile fading. "Are you fighting again?" "No, sweetheart," I said quickly, shooting Grant a warning look. "Mommy and Daddy are just talking." Grant knelt down to Sadie's level. "Hey, Bug, why don't you go get dressed for school? I'll make your lunch in a few minutes." After she scampered upstairs, Grant turned back to me. "Mireille, I wasn't questioning you. I was just making conversation." "Were you?" I challenged. "Because it feels like you're looking for some kind of gotcha moment, like you're waiting for me to slip up and prove I'm lying about something. Are you lying about something?" The question hung in the air between us, loaded with implications I wasn't ready to face. "The fact that you even have to ask that question proves my point," I said finally. "This marriage is broken, Grant. When a husband automatically assumes his wife is lying, that's not a partnership, that's a prison." I grabbed my phone and quickly texted my mother. "Grant is being even worse this morning. Acting like I'm some kind of criminal for spending time with you. I can't live like this." Her response came immediately. "He's gaslighting you, honey, making you question your own reality. This is emotional abuse. You don't have to tolerate this." I showed Grant the message. "Even Mom can see what you're doing to me." Grant read the text, and for a moment, something flickered across his face. Hurt, maybe, or disappointment. But when he looked up at me, his expression was carefully neutral. "I'm going to take Sadie to school," he said quietly. "We can talk more tonight if you want." "If I want?" I laughed bitterly. "There you go again, making it sound like I'm the one with the problem." Like I'm the one who needs to decide whether our marriage is worth saving. Grant paused at the kitchen doorway. Aren't you? The question caught me off guard, and for a moment I couldn't think of how to respond. By the time I found my voice, he was already upstairs helping Sadie get ready. I spent the day at work distracted, replaying the morning's conversation over and over. My colleague Jennifer noticed my mood during lunch. You seem off today, she observed. Everything okay at home? Grant and I had a fight last night, I admitted. He's being incredibly controlling about me spending time with my family. I'm starting to wonder if this marriage is salvageable. Jennifer frowned. That doesn't sound like Grant. He's always seemed pretty laid back when I've met him. That's just his public face, I said. Behind closed doors, it's different. The constant questioning, the suspicion, the way he makes me feel guilty for wanting any independence. But even as I said the words, something felt off about them. Was Grant really controlling, or was I just feeling guilty about Joel and projecting that onto my husband? I pushed the thought away. I knew what I'd experienced. I knew how Grant made me feel. That evening, as I pulled into our driveway, I noticed Grant's car was already there. Through the kitchen window, I could see him helping Sadie with what looked like homework. It was such a normal domestic scene. For just a moment, I felt a pang of something, regret, longing. But then I remembered Joel's words about deserving better, about not slowly dying inside a marriage that didn't fulfill me. I deserved to be happy. I deserved to feel alive. And if Grant couldn't give me that, maybe it was time to find someone who could. Sunday dinner at Marion's house had been a monthly tradition since Grant and I got married, but lately, these gatherings felt more like endurance tests than family bonding. Today was no exception, especially with the tension from Thursday night still hanging between Grant and me like a toxic cloud. Mireille, you look tired, dear, Marion said as she passed the roast chicken, her sharp eyes taking in my appearance with the scrutiny of a detective. Are you feeling all right? I'm fine, I replied, forcing a smile. Just been a busy week at work. Grant's older brother Eli looked up from cutting his daughter's meat. How's the HR department treating you? Still dealing with all those workplace drama situations? Something like that, I said, shooting a meaningful glance at Grant, though sometimes the drama at home is worse than anything I see at the office. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Sadie continued eating, oblivious, but I could feel everyone else's attention sharpen. What do you mean by that? Marion asked carefully. I took a breath, knowing this was my chance to set the record straight about what had been happening in my marriage. These people needed to understand what I'd been dealing with. I mean that it's exhausting being married to someone who questions every move you make, I said, my voice steady, but loud enough for everyone to hear. Someone who makes you feel like you need permission to spend time with your own mother. Grant's fork paused halfway to his mouth, but he didn't respond. He just continued eating as if I hadn't spoken. Thursday night was a perfect example, I continued, warming to my theme. I wanted to spend one night with my mum, just one night to reconnect with my family, and Grant acted like I was abandoning our daughter to run off with strangers. That's not what happened, Grant said quietly, still not looking up from his plate. Isn't it? I challenged. You questioned why I needed to sleep over. You made me feel guilty about Sadie missing one morning routine. You turned a simple request into an interrogation. Eli exchanged a glance with his wife Sarah. Maybe this is something you two should discuss privately. No, I interrupted. I'm tired of keeping this private. I'm tired of pretending everything is fine when it's not. Your brother has trust issues, and it's destroying our marriage. Marion set down her water glass with a sharp clink. Trust issues? Grant is one of the most trusting people I know. Maybe too trusting, if you ask me. What's that supposed to mean? I demanded. It means, Marion said, her voice taking on that steely quality I'd learned to dread, that a wife who truly has nothing to hide doesn't usually get so defensive about her husband asking reasonable questions. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. Reasonable questions? He treats me like a teenager asking permission to go to a party. Does he? Eli asked, and there was something in his tone that made me look at him more carefully. Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like he asked about the logistics of you being away overnight when Sadie had school the next day. That seems pretty normal for a parent. You don't understand, I said, frustration building in my chest. It's not about the logistics. It's about the pattern, the constant suspicion. The way he makes me feel like I have to justify every friendship, every outing, every moment I spend away from this house. Grant finally looked up at me, and there was something in his eyes I'd never seen before, a kind of quiet sadness that made my stomach clench. When have I ever told you that you couldn't see your friends? He asked softly. When have I ever said you couldn't go out? It's not what you say, it's how you say it, I shot back. The questions, the looks, the way you make me feel guilty for wanting any life outside this family. Maybe, Sarah said carefully, you feel guilty for other reasons. The question hit me like a physical blow. Excuse me? Nothing, Sarah said quickly, but the damage was done. I could see it in their faces. They were all thinking the same thing. They were all suspicious of me. Unbelievable, I said, throwing my napkin down on the table. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I can't even express my feelings about my own marriage without everyone assuming I'm the problem. I pulled out my phone and started typing to my mother. Having dinner with Grant's family. They're all ganging up on me, acting like I'm crazy for wanting basic respect in my marriage. I need to get out of here. Her response was immediate. Leave right now, honey. You don't have to subject yourself to that kind of treatment. Come straight here. I stood up abruptly. I'm done with this. Sadie, get your things. We're leaving. Mireille, sit down, Grant said, and there was a firmness in his voice I rarely heard. Sadie is finishing her dinner. Don't tell me what to do with my daughter, I snapped. Our daughter, Grant corrected, and something in his tone made everyone at the table go very still. And she's not leaving in the middle of Sunday dinner because you're upset. I'm not upset, I'm done, I said. Done with the suspicion, done with the judgment, done with feeling like I'm on trial in my own family. Marion leaned forward. Mireille, dear, maybe you should think about why you're feeling so defensive. When someone has nothing to hide... Don't, I cut her off. Don't you dare finish that sentence. You've never liked me, Marion. You've been waiting for years for Grant to realize he made a mistake marrying me. That's not true, Grant said sharply. Mum has always... Has always what? Supported me. Been welcoming. I laughed bitterly. She's been looking for reasons to get rid of me since day one, and now she thinks she's found one. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. Sadie, come on. We're going to Grandma Lila's. Mireille, Grant called after me, but I was already walking away. In the car, Sadie was quiet for several minutes before asking, Mummy, why was everyone acting so weird? Sometimes adults have disagreements, baby, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. It's not your fault, okay? Sometimes people just don't understand each other. But as I drove toward my mother's apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was the one who wasn't being understood. All I wanted was support from my family, and instead, I'd gotten interrogation and judgment. My phone buzzed with a text from Grant. We need to talk tonight. This can't continue. I didn't respond. I was tired of talking. I was tired of being made to feel like the villain in my own life. Maybe it was time to stop talking and start taking action. It was nearly 11 p.m. when I finally came home from my mother's apartment. The house was dark except for the porch light Grant had left on for me, and I could see the blue glow of the television through the living room curtains. He was waiting up, just like I knew he would be. I found him on the couch, still in his clothes from dinner, staring at some late-night talk show without really watching it. When he heard me come in, he muted the TV and turned to face me. How's your mom? He asked quietly. She's fine, I said, not bothering to sit down. Concerned about me, obviously. She can see what this marriage is doing to me, even if you can't. Grant rubbed his face with both hands, a gesture I recognized as his way of trying to stay calm. Mireille, We can't keep doing this. The fighting, the accusations, the way we acted in front of my family tonight. This isn't healthy for any of us, especially not for Sadie. You're right, I said, and I saw a flicker of hope cross his face. It's not healthy, and I'm done pretending it is. I moved to stand directly in front of him, my hands on my hips. Here's what's going to happen, Grant. Either you start treating me like an adult who can make her own decisions about when and where I spend my time, or I'm filing for divorce. The words hung in the air between us like a loaded gun. Grant stared at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Is that really what you want? He asked finally. What I want is a husband who trusts me. What I want is a marriage where I don't have to justify every friendship, every outing, every moment I spend away from this house. What I want is to feel like a partner instead of a prisoner. And if I can't give you that? The question caught me off guard. I'd expected him to argue, to try to defend himself, to promise he'd change. Instead, he was asking me to clarify my ultimatum. Then we're done, I said firmly. I won't spend the rest of my life walking on eggshells, afraid to live my own life because my husband has trust issues. Grant nodded slowly, as if he was processing something important. Okay, I understand. Do you? I pressed. Because I'm serious, Grant. I'm not bluffing. I deserve better than this, and if you can't see that, then maybe we both deserve better than each other. You're probably right, he said quietly, and something in his tone made me pause. What's that supposed to mean? It means, Grant said, standing up and facing me directly, that maybe we do both deserve better. Maybe we've both been settling for something that isn't working. There was something different about him tonight, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. He seemed resolved, somehow, like he'd made a decision about something while I was gone. So what are you saying? I asked. I'm saying that if you're unhappy enough to threaten divorce, then maybe divorce is what we should be talking about. The words hit me like a slap. This wasn't how this conversation was supposed to go. He was supposed to fight for us, to promise to change, to beg me to reconsider. Just like that, I said. 8 years of marriage, and you're ready to throw it all away just like that? I'm not the one who brought up divorce, Mireille. You are. I'm just taking you at your word. I'm trying to save our marriage, I protested. I'm telling you what needs to change for us to work. No, Grant said, and there was a sadness in his voice that made something twist in my chest. You're telling me that you want to do whatever you want, whenever you want, without any questions or concerns from your husband, and you're threatening to end our marriage if I don't agree to that. That's not, I started, but he held up a hand. Let me ask you something, he said. If the situation were reversed, if I told you I wanted to spend nights away from home whenever I felt like it, and that you weren't allowed to ask questions about it, how would you feel? That's different, I said automatically. How? I opened my mouth to explain, but no words came. Because when he put it like that, it did sound unreasonable. But that wasn't what I was asking for, was it? You're twisting my words, I said finally. Am I? Grant asked. Because from where I'm standing, it sounds like you want all the benefits of being married, the financial security, the co-parenting, the social status, without any of the responsibilities that come with being someone's partner. How dare you, I said, my voice rising. I have been nothing but a devoted wife and mother. Have you? The question was so quiet I almost didn't hear it. What's that supposed to mean? Grant looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something in his eyes that made my stomach drop. It means that devoted wives don't usually need to threaten divorce to get permission to do whatever they want. From upstairs came the sound of Sadie's bedroom door opening, followed by her small voice calling down, Daddy, Mummy, I can't sleep. We're coming, baby, Grant called back, his voice immediately gentle. Then he looked at me. We should finish this conversation tomorrow, when we can think more clearly. But I was beyond thinking clearly. I was angry and hurt and confused by his reaction to my ultimatum. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Fine, I said. But my position hasn't changed, Grant. Either you start treating me with the respect I deserve, or I'm calling a lawyer. Grant nodded. I understand perfectly. As we went upstairs to comfort our daughter, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted in our conversation. But I pushed the feeling away. I'd drawn my line in the sand. Now it was up to Grant to decide which side of it he wanted to be on. I just hoped he'd make the right choice. I was running late for work the next morning, rushing around the kitchen, trying to pack Sadie's lunch while simultaneously applying mascara in my phone's camera. Grant had already left to drop Sadie at school, which was unusual. Normally, we did the morning routine together. The doorbell rang at exactly 8:47 a.m. Mrs. Mireille Gresham. The man at my door was professionally dressed, holding a manila envelope and a clipboard. Yes? You've been served. He handed me the envelope and had me sign for it before walking away without another word. My hands were shaking as I tore open the envelope. The words seemed to swim on the page at first. Petition for dissolution of marriage, irreconcilable differences, temporary custody arrangement. Grant had filed for divorce. I sank onto the couch, reading through the documents with growing disbelief. He wasn't just asking for divorce. He was asking for primary custody of Sadie, citing my unstable behavior and threats to abandon the family unit. He was requesting that I continue to pay my portion of the mortgage while moving out of the house. He was asking for spousal support. My phone rang. It was my mother. Honey, what's wrong? You sound upset. Grant filed for divorce, I said numbly. He actually filed for divorce. What? But I thought you were the one who was going to file. You said last night that you were going to give him an ultimatum. I did give him an ultimatum. I told him either he starts treating me with respect or I'd file for divorce, so he filed first. There was a pause. Well, honey, maybe this is for the best. You deserve so much better than... Mom, he's asking for primary custody of Sadie. He's saying I'm unstable. He can't do that. You're her mother. But as I continued reading through the documents, I realized that Grant could do exactly that. And based on what I was seeing, he'd been preparing for this for longer than just one night. My phone buzzed with a text from Joel. Hey, beautiful. How did things go at home last night? Still on for drinks this week? I stared at the message, my stomach dropping. Then I scrolled up through our text history, all the flirtatious messages, the plans we'd made, the photos I'd sent. If Grant had somehow seen these. I called Grant immediately. Mireille, he answered on the first ring. I assume you got the papers. How could you do this? I demanded. We had one fight and you file for divorce. One fight. Grant's voice was calm, almost eerily so. Mireille, you threatened to divorce me unless I agreed to let you do whatever you wanted without question. I'm simply taking you at your word. But I didn't mean it literally. I was trying to get you to understand how I felt. By threatening to end our marriage. Yes, I understand perfectly. There was something in his tone that made me nervous. Grant, we can work this out. We don't need lawyers. Actually, we do. My attorney has advised me that all communication should go through him from now on. His information is in the papers you received. Your attorney? How do you already have an attorney? I retained David Morrison last Friday. He's been helping me understand my options. Friday. 3 days ago. Before our fight on Sunday. Before my ultimatum last night. He'd been planning this. You've been planning to divorce me for days, I said, my voice rising. While I was trying to save our marriage, you were plotting to destroy it. I wasn't plotting anything, Mireille. I was protecting myself and my daughter. Your daughter? She's my daughter too. Is she your priority? Grant asked quietly. Because based on your behavior lately, it's hard to tell. What's that supposed to mean? It means that mothers who prioritize their children don't threaten to abandon them over their right to spend nights away from home with no questions asked. I felt like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. I never threatened to abandon Sadie. You threatened to divorce her father unless he agreed to let you do whatever you wanted. How is that different? I couldn't think of an answer to that. My mind was reeling, trying to process how quickly everything had fallen apart. Grant, please, we can fix this. We can go to counseling. The time for counseling was before you started threatening divorce, before you decided that your marriage was something you could use as leverage to get your way. I was trying to communicate my needs. By threatening to leave if I didn't meet them. Yes, I heard you loud and clear. My phone beeped with another text from Joel. Everything okay? You seem stressed lately. Want to talk about it tonight? I quickly deleted the message, but not before a horrible thought occurred to me. Grant, I said carefully, have you been going through my phone? There was a long pause. I don't need to go through your phone, Mireille. Your behavior speaks for itself. What does that mean? It means that when someone starts picking fights about their right to spend nights away from home, when they start accusing their spouse of being controlling for asking basic questions, when they start threatening divorce unless they get complete freedom to do whatever they want, well, it paints a pretty clear picture. My blood ran cold. You think I'm having an affair? I think you're unhappy in our marriage, and you've been looking for ways to blame me for that unhappiness. Whether there's someone else involved is irrelevant at this point. But it wasn't irrelevant, and we both knew it. If Grant suspected something and had evidence. I want to see Sadie, I said. You can see her during your scheduled visitation times. They're outlined in the temporary custody agreement. Scheduled visitation? She's my daughter, Grant. And she deserves stability. She deserves parents who put her needs first instead of using her as a weapon in their personal battles. I was crying now, ugly sobs that made it hard to speak. How did we get here? How did everything fall apart so fast? It didn't fall apart fast, Mireille. It's been falling apart for months. Last night was just when you finally said out loud what we both already knew. What's that? That you don't want to be married anymore. At least not to me. The line went quiet, except for my crying. My attorney will be in touch about the details, Grant said finally. Take care of yourself, Mireille. After he hung up, I sat on the couch staring at the divorce papers, trying to understand how my ultimatum had backfired so spectacularly. I'd been trying to save my marriage, and instead I'd ended it. My phone buzzed with one more text from Joel. Hey, just saw your husband at the coffee shop with some guy in a suit. They had a bunch of papers spread out on the table. Everything cool? I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it. Everything was definitely not cool. And somehow, I had the sinking feeling that Grant had been 3 steps ahead of me this entire time.